Rachel V. Hill, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
It's a Tuesday, which means we've got James Palmer on the show. How are you? We finally are talking about a Broncos win.
How about that? I predicted it on Schlereth and Evans on Friday morning. They said, I'm on every Friday morning with those guys. And they're like, what's your prediction? I said, Broncos are going to win this game.
I like it. Is that because everybody heard you talking about how the Steelers were making fun of the game plan for Bo Nix, essentially? And
everybody was talking about that, weren't they? And here's the thing. They weren't making fun of Bo Nix. Like, I want to clarify this. I saw it on Sports Illustrated. At first, it said James Palmer on Steve Smith's podcast, which I talked to Steve. We did our show again this morning. And I'm like, this is our show. This is not Steve's show. I said it on my own show that I co-host with Steve. But nonetheless, they were not making fun of Bo Nix. Actually, a couple of them told me they think Bo is going to be a pretty decent quarterback. It was, I actually don't like playing. A couple of them said this. I like playing veteran quarterbacks. There's more variety of plays. That sounds crazy, but sometimes the idea when there's a limited playbook, you kind of get lulled to sleep a little bit. That happens with some guys. And that's what kind of some of the guys were saying. They're like, man, I wanted to see some different stuff, but it wasn't all that complex. But that's normal. It's not crazy. It's the way it works with a lot of young quarterbacks. You're finding your footing as a young guy. It's not that expansive. It's not the Drew Brees playbook. It's okay. But yeah, it did make its rounds, didn't it, Rachel?
It definitely did. So it's like, okay, so some of the guys down in Tampa maybe think, this one's going to be a walk in the park. Because this isn't the same Tampa Bay team that we saw against the Detroit Lions. Like, we saw two very different teams, it felt like.
We did. And physically they were different. I mean, Antoine Winfield Jr. is one of the best safeties in football. He was one of the most versatile defensive players in football. Their defense is just night and day different without him on the field. Vita Vea is one of the best interior defensive players in football. I mean, he's just so disruptive from the nose spot. It's ridiculous. So I'm not like making like excuses for Tampa or just taking anything away from the Broncos win. They needed this win, and they needed a situation that was different from their first two games, which, it's funny, like go look at fewest yards per game allowed by defenses in the NFL. The Broncos are third. Who are the two teams ahead of them? The Steelers and the Seahawks. They face two really, really good defenses. Two defenses that, in my opinion, will probably be top 10 defenses at the end of the year. Yeah. That's a tough way to start as a rookie quarterback. So they just kind of needed this. They needed this setup. And they needed, and we can talk about it because we're going to debate, not debate, I think we'll agree, about Patrick Surtain against Garrett Wilson this week. He once again shut down a number one, and their offense runs through Mike Evans, and it should. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's an unbelievable wide receiver, and he was shut down by Patrick Surtain. That alters your entire offense. Yeah. So compound that with the way Surtain played, with the way this defense, I think as a whole, is playing very well. It's not getting paid enough attention to nationally, probably at all, maybe even here in Denver. And then it was a banged up Bucs defense. And Sean Payton kind of has Todd Bowles' number a little bit, and Vance Joseph kind of has Baker Mayfield's number. I think Baker's like 1-4 against VJ. So it was kind of a needed game, I think, for the Broncos and to get that first win.
Well, and you could just tell. I was rewatching the film this morning, and after every single big play, it was like, all right, like, here we go. Like, this team has believed in themselves from day one. And to finally see that work pay off and be able to get a win, you could tell it meant so much to every single guy out there. But it is fascinating that, it was a totally different Bucs team, but yet was it the Broncos actually beating them, or did the Bucs overlook them? And that's, I feel like, what we're actually going to learn on Sunday when we see how good the Broncos look against the Jets. Yeah,
and that happens in this league. It really does. And as much as coaches want to say it doesn't, it does. That's a huge win over the Lions for Tampa Bay. I mean, just a monstrous win. The Lions are one of the true Super Bowl contenders in this league and one of the few coming out of the NFC. And so that's a huge win. And then you go, we got a winless team with a quarterback that has only played 2 games in his NFL career and is struggling. Yeah, that happens. I mean, go look at what happened in Las Vegas. Like, the Raiders went out to Baltimore and beat the Ravens at home, who are a very good team. You got Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco hugging in the tunnel. So I'm so surprised Tom didn't go down. AP's still a huge former middle linebacker, and they're going crazy. And then what happens? They get mopped by the Panthers. Yeah. Who are just swimming right now, right? And it was 33-7 at one point. So this happens. The ebbs and flows of the league. Don't overlook anybody. You can't do it. And you can't let your highs get too high and your lows get too low. And though things have been low here in Denver after the first 2 games, I don't think Bo Nix and Sean Payton and the rest of that group let things get too low. I think they think they're close in a couple of things, and they came out and they played well. But yeah, you can't overlook anybody. I'm not saying Tampa did that. They were beat up big time. No left tackle as well. Kalisa Clancy's also gone on the defensive line. They were banged up a little bit. But oftentimes you do see this happen when you have a big win. Let down a little bit. Maybe in Tampa. I don't know.
Just a smidge. I was also bummed. I wanted to see Vita Vea play because he's absolute stud. So, yeah, I was definitely a little bit bummed about that front. Real quick, the Antonio Pierce business decision things, I just real quick want to touch on this. Is that a little bit of a threat to your players to sit there and say, you made some business decisions, so we're going to now make some business decisions?
It very much so is. It is. And I would say probably a coach with longer head coaching experience probably doesn't make that statement as early as AP did. He's also the leader of a defense in his past. He's also a Super Bowl winning player. He knows when effort's not there. He's led a unit before, so he sees these things. One of the things that we always want in the media, Rachel, is what? We want honesty, and we want these people to speak their minds and not just give us the coach speak. AP will give you his honest opinion, and I think that's very refreshing in this league. But I mentioned that was a real high they had in Baltimore, and then a real low the next week. How do you kind of measure through those? But he has a very good gauge on effort, being a former player that played at a high level for a long time. And it wasn't up to his standards. And they got beat by a team that was not very good, that is not very good. And they got beat badly. And so, it's sending a message to your group. I would say Vegas has one of these a year. If you go back and look at it, they have like one game a year where you're like, what happened? You know what I mean? And it's very Raiders of them. I wouldn't be surprised if a quarterback change happened at some point. This game was not on Gardner Minshew. He was off target some. We're kind of getting in the weeds here about the Raiders. Devontae wasn't himself. But a change could be happening, and maybe you make a personnel change in something that doesn't really affect your team. I hate to say that about a certain player, maybe down lower on your roster, to make sure your points driven home this week.
Yeah, no kidding. It'll be interesting, of course, the Broncos matchup with the Raiders coming up here in just a few short weeks. But let's get to what everybody in the comments is talking about, James.
Okay.
Trade Zach Wilson for a 5th-round pick. Don't trade Zach Wilson at all. If you can't get any trade value for either Wilson or Stidham, make the deal. It'll help the team next year. Okay, everybody here in the Mile High City is like, oh, Zach Wilson to Miami. It makes a whole lot of sense, but you have to have a trade partner on the other end who's actually interested. Is Miami even interested, James?
Not to my understanding. I mean, style of play is extremely important. Playing really quickly, really on time, rhythm of the offense. That's the way Miami operates. To me, that's like a Joe Flacco move. Honestly, that's like a Joe Flacco trade. That's like, you would exclude like a guy like Russell Wilson. You exclude a guy like Carson Wentz. I'm looking at, guys that are not starting in this league right now. Drew Lock, maybe. These guys don't really, any of them, and I'd put Zach Wilson in that as well, fit really the style that Mike McDaniel runs this offense. The ball's out quick. These are really precise, tight window throwing, type of schematic concepts. Bo Nix fits it better than Zach Wilson does, honestly, his traits. And so, they brought in Snoop Hundley. They want to take a look. Skylar Thompson's probably not the guy. I don't see them trading for Zach Wilson because the other part is Tua's coming back most likely. So do you make that trade and you give a 5th-round pick to salvage potentially 5 games, in the middle of your season? It's a reason why Ryan Tannehill's not really interested in the job while he's at home in Nashville with the family, because Tua's going to take the team back over most likely if you read the tea leaves. So are you giving up a 5th-round pick to rent Zach Wilson for 5 games in something that he doesn't really know, in a system he doesn't know? I don't see how that adds up. Not saying it won't happen, but it seems like, looking at everything I listed, it doesn't seem likely.
No, and I'm with you. It doesn't. I think more people are just surprised that Tua is going to come back. I haven't heard any timeline, and maybe you have.
No, there isn't one. Yeah, there's not a timeline. I mean, I'm saying 5 games because the 4 is the IR, which we're already 1 game down to the 4. And then they have a bye week after the 4 games are done. So the very next game, I want to say it's Indy. I could look it up, whatever. Like it's October that he's coming back because it's essentially the 4 games of IR and the bye week. So if you even wanted to give him more time than just the 4 games and the bye week and say that's 6 weeks that he comes back in, that's still just 5 games that you would potentially be plugging somebody in. There is no timeline established. Things got a little wonky with the neurologists in terms of scheduling. So some of that type of meetings he had with them got pushed back a week. But the buzz around the league is that he's going to be coming back this season. When that is, I don't know. I was just throwing 5 games out there because that would be essentially the 4 games of an IR, the bye week, and maybe 1 more game. And you give up a 5th round pick for that and a guy that doesn't know your system for a rental period. Tough.
Yeah, no, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for Miami. So while it has been a hot topic here in Denver, it's like you have to have a trade partner for it to actually make sense. If you're the Broncos, do you even just pick up the phone, though, to see what the Dolphins are thinking on that front? Or do you okay. Do you think they've done that?
Of course. I mean, honestly, if George Paton didn't do that, he's not doing his job, honestly. Sure. There are a group of GMs that call on everyone. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Howie Roseman called the Panthers and was like, what's your thoughts on Bryce Young?
Yeah.
Like, he's got a good quarterback and a good backup. They have 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Kenny Pickett's one of them, a former first-round pick. Yeah. He's the type of guy that'll call on every deal. You need to call and say, well, what are you guys thinking? What if they're like, what if you don't call, you don't know if Mike McDaniel thinks the world of Zach Wilson. Sure. Say, hey, we'll give you a 5th, like you're saying. We'll give you a 4th. Oh, you would have never known you got to call and check when you have commodities that can help your team.
Is the 4th the highest you can get for Zach Wilson, or is it really a 5th?
I think it's a 5th. Yeah. I mean, there's no evidence outside of like the league's thought on this outside of Denver is there's no evidence that Zach Wilson has turned a corner outside of what we're hearing from the Denver Broncos that he has turned a corner. They haven't seen, in my opinion, personal opinion, I thought he had a very good camp. He seems comfortable, seems rejuvenated. He seems to be headed back in the right direction. We're now watching quarterbacks, and I think it's really fun because I hate when we write players off in this league. I think it's fun to watch Sam Darnold go out there and ball right now. Baker Mayfield had a down game against the Broncos, but he's been playing great at like one of the highest pass ratings in football heading into this week 3 game. And, that's 2 of them that have bounced back. We've seen Geno Smith. He beat the Broncos, go out and bounce back. I don't like when we write guys off and it's over. And they don't get another crack. Our league is seeing that right now where some guys in the right situation and finding their footing can bounce back for sure. We just listed a couple of them. That's not to say that can't happen with Zach Wilson for sure. There's just no evidence right now to the rest of the league. Like, I'm going to give up more than a 5th round pick for that right now without any really knowledge or performance that they've seen. It's happened in the past, though. Like, Andy Reid used to hide quarterbacks all the time. Kevin Kolb was one that, like, you barely saw him play, and then Andy, like, flipped him for, like, a 4th round pick. Like, it happens sometimes, and sometimes it does happen because of the situation the player's in. Like, oh, that guy's with Andy Reid. He thinks a lot of him. That guy's with Sean Payton. He thinks a lot of him. But there's not enough out there right now. Nobody's giving up more than that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I at. But speaking of writing people off, it feels like a lot of people right now are writing off somebody you and I have talked about, I'm pretty sure, every single week on the show. And that's Javonte Williams. And he hasn't lived up to the expectations people had for him this season. But is it too early to write him off, James? Or does it just feel like he's past his prime and all has come to an end?
I think it's too early, honestly. I mean, I was hearing great things from the coaching staff privately, about the way he was looking in camp, Rachel, how he was running the football, how the burst was back, how his legs were back to what they saw prior to the injury last year, playing at like a shell of himself, about 50%, in really their opinion of the way he was. And they were very excited about this season. It's a slow start, but I'd say it's a slow start for them running the football as a team. So I would say this. Is he in jeopardy of losing the starting job? I would say that's probably a possibility. I think the backfield, the way it's designed right now, you're not paying anybody a ton of money. There's not a guy where you're going, financially, we're stuck to this guy. We got to ride the hot hand. We got to ride him. No, I mean, I think you're in a position right now, you ride the hot hand and you go with who's running the football well out of the backfield. And if it's Tyler, however you want to say his name.
I was literally about to ask you, how are you pronouncing it? Because it is
I refuse to go down this until he tells me to my face. So I'm just going to call him TB. And if you want to ride TB's hot hand, that's fine with me. I think this backfield is designed to honestly go with what's hot. It's funny because I was just having this conversation with a front office guy before we did this, where it was like there's two schools of thought in the way the league works. There's guys that spread it all over the place, and the ball goes everywhere, like a Jim Harbaugh type of thought process, which I'm cool to see Keenan Allen go, Mike Williams go, because I don't want to force feed a particular player. Then there's like a philosophy where everything in Tampa runs through Mike Evans. The offense runs through a star receiver, and you got to make sure you get him touches. And then there's the philosophy like Harbaugh's brother has, and John is like, whoever is hot, put the ball there repeatedly. If Derrick Henry's running the ball, great, keep going there. Isaiah Likely is, on a heater, let's keep going, throwing him the football. That's the way he works. So all these philosophies have had success in the league. Which one are the Broncos going to have at the running back position? My thought would be you're going with whoever has the hot hand, and you're going to continue to, feed that player in the running game more so than spreading out. Do I think like he's just written off and they make him inactive? I don't know about that. It is tough because he doesn't really play special teams. So that complicates the matter a little bit. But I just think the backfield is designed where it's just like, let's see who's playing well this game, and let's see who we give the football to. I do think you're going to see TB get some more play designs during the week, which would expand his role during the game, which is the one thing everybody can kind of talks about a lot is, well, why don't you just put him in? Well, if he hasn't practiced the plays, you can't just throw him in without that. So I would assume while they're out there in West Virginia that, his slate of reps in a wider variety of plays is increased this week.
All right, before we get to West Virginia, because I know you've traveled out there and I want to get your thoughts on it. Does Javonte Williams have enough of the clear mindset to be able to overcome these things, though, right? We saw him on the sidelines with the fumbles. We know that he's had a hard time with that in the past. Can he get over those hurdles?
I don't know. I mean, that's for the coaching staff to find out for sure. And the sooner they find it out, the better. It's kind of like we were just talking, though, like there's confidence issues with a lot of players in this league. It's the main reason Bryce Young was benched. It's strictly a confidence thing, and he's lost it and he's rattled. Do you reset? Do you reset or do you write the player off? Like, I think that's the difference that you're looking at, and that's up to the coaching staff to see, is this an issue that he's not going to get over? Or is this an issue that we can coach him through? I mean, that's another reason why these coaches are paid what they're paid. Like, get him through this situation and get his confidence back. That's part of your job as a coaching staff. But it's also part of your job as a coaching staff to figure out if it's curable or he can right the ship. But I think that's one of the biggest things they're trying to figure out right now. And I don't think they have the answer just yet.
We'll see what ends up happening this week. You can always kind of tell what Sean Payton's thinking with the way the game plan goes per week. But let's talk West Virginia. You have actually been out there to where the Broncos are practicing. It looks beautiful. What the heck is there to do out there besides play football?
You can ride some ATVs. You can check some bunkers out. You can do some stuff in the mountains, essentially. There's nothing there. The airport has rocking chairs on the front of it, and you can just sit outside and watch the planes roll in. There goes one.
Oh, amazing.
Just big rocking chairs right out front. I mean, it's gorgeous. It looks like every room looks like you're trapped in like 1940 with wallpaper and curtains and wild look to them. And then you go up the hill and across the way, and like in the middle of the woods are these like beautiful football fields. And it's very private. I think it's great for team building. I mean, teams usually in the South would go. Obviously, I went there with the Texans. I went there with the Saints with Sean and covered them there. And it's an opportunity to really get away from everything. I mean, like there isn't much there other than to hang out with your teammates. I mean, that's it. And you know what? That might be a good thing for a young team, for a hungry team like the Denver Broncos. It's an opportunity. And Sean's been there, so I think he knows kind of some of the things you can do with your team while you're there in terms of team building and focus. And it's football and be with your teammates. And that's, I think pretty cool, honestly. It's a really weird place in the most beautiful fashion possible.
I have two questions that on that.
I'm trying to look at it. Just see if
the wallpaper makes me immediately go to my grandma's house.
That's very much so like, yes. It's like your grandma's.
Smell, though.
Oh, the smell? It smells old.
Okay.
The hotel is very old. I'm trying to see if I can
I just think
Pull
of
up.
them walking into a Four Seasons hotel like they normally
No.
travel to, and it smells good and
All
it's
right.
beautiful, and
Let's see
then
if I can do
walking in
this.
here.
Like this is the hotel,
I mean, gorge. It kind of reminds me of
right?
the Stanley Hotel.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hopefully not as haunted.
Yeah.
But
Or maybe if it is, that makes it a little extra fun. You never
I
know.
know it is. Let me see if I have anything else here.
Was
Oh
the
man.
food good?
The food's okay. Look, see, this is what you do looking for a plane to come in. This is great. This is good content we got here. Now you can just sit out there and watch
Oh
the
my God, you
planes roll
literally can
in
just sit
on
out
a
there.
rocker. Yeah.
Wait, those chairs look like something my parents had at
Yeah,
their.
you're actually the airport. The stuff goes like through a wall and then like comes right back, like right back to you. Like they put they put the bag down and it just goes through the wall. Like you see them put the bag down there and you're standing there and it goes through in there. You pick it up. It's pretty ridiculous, but yeah, it's really really cool. I mean, it's beautiful. Like here's when the Texans were there. I mean, it's just like you're in the middle of
Yeah, I mean, that's
nowhere.
stunning.
It's kind of
Better
it's
than
kind of
looking at
wild. Yeah, it's a very interesting place, but
Bronx
it's great.
Road.
I think it's great team building.
Okay.
Wow, Tyrann Mathieu, JJ Watt there, yeah, all sorts of these guys.
Back in the
Back in the
day.
day here. Yeah.
Back in the day. Okay, interesting.
But
So
there's
it
nothing
smells
here.
like grandma's house. It has
Yeah.
decent food. I don't think they're going to be ATVing just for safety. So like
No.
board games? Is that
Yeah.
what like video
Yeah.
games?
I feel like board games. I feel like video
Okay.
games. Yeah. I mean, these guys play cards like crazy. You know what I
Really?
mean? That type of stuff. Yeah. So that's a big number one playing
What's
deal.
your favorite board game here, James?
I've been playing Clue a lot lately. I'm not gonna lie. Clue
Fun.
is an unbelievably underrated game.
Yeah.
It's complicated. I forgot how complicated it was, but we've been playing it up in the mountains a lot lately. I love Clue. Clue is no joke. But I'm a chess guy.
Okay.
I like Stratego. That's another good board game.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I grew up loving
loving
the game of Monopoly. I don't have
Okay.
the patience for Monopoly anymore.
Too long. Yeah.
Agreed. Too
Way
long.
too
And
long.
also Ticket to Ride. That's been a game we've been probably for the past 2 years. We
Right.
played pretty recently or pretty
Write
often.
this
So
down.
big board game fans. Love that for us.
Ticket to Ride. Yeah, this is good. I'll have to do Ticket to Ride and see
Write
what
that
it's
down.
all about. I'm
Yeah.
down.
All right.
Yeah.
Last one for you as we just look ahead to the Jets. How are you feeling? You predicted the Broncos to get a win. Are we thinking we might see 2 wins back to back?
I think it's going to be tough, but I think they're built to definitely give the Jets a game. I mean, we saw Aaron Rodgers kind of go back to being Aaron Rodgers. I thought he moved around really, really well. Again, like I said, I think the Broncos defense is underratedly playing very, very well to start the season. I think when you have 7 sacks last week and it comes from 6 different players, I think that's kind of a sign of what's going on up front. I think Zach Allen has been playing just unbelievable football, and that's buzz around the league right now, honestly, about how well he's playing up front. He's been in the backfield just constantly. But Aaron's moving better, and I think that is a big thing to keep an eye on, as opposed to the first 2 games, a little bit more comfortable. But you have kind of a similar makeup than you had the previous week. Can you take Garrett Wilson, another star wide receiver from the Ohio State University? God, there's so many.
Ohio State.
Oh my gosh, there's so many Ohio State star wide receivers. Who's, I mean, really just an outstanding player. I mean, we probably haven't seen it, but you ask anybody who's coached him, and I've talked to them, and who plays it, like he's one of the best receivers in football. Can Patrick Surtain keep this going again? I mean, it's been 3 straight performances where VJ wasn't lying. Like, I'm going to put him on number ones, and you're going to have to throw the ball at him because they want him to be more active, the ability to make plays. And he has shut down these number 1 receivers. He's played bigger receivers, right? DK's a big receiver. Pickens is pretty good size. We know how big Mike Evans is. If you can kind of force the ball to go elsewhere, you're going to force like Allen Lazard to kind of beat you. You know what I mean? You're going to force the ball elsewhere. I think Breece Hall's a really, really good back in terms of catching the ball. So how do you find that way? You're put in a bind with the Jets. Do you load the box to try to stop, a run game that can be pretty good and on the interior, and you don't give Garrett Wilson enough attention? Well, if you can handle him one-on-one with Patrick Surtain on the outside, you can kind of stuff the middle a little bit. Their pass rush kind of got after the Patriots quite a bit. And that was one of the things the Broncos didn't need to worry about that much with the Bucs was a pass rush. They just didn't have a great one, and they haven't been doing it really this year, and that benefited them. They got after the Patriots big time up front. And so this is a defense that has the ability to play well. for sure. I think it's going to come down to, do stars make plays? And that means, do the Jet stars not make plays? And do the Broncos, key players make plays?
I loved VJ on Pat Surtain just saying about his penalty flags, being like, I'd rather have a player who's on the ball than off the ball. And I love that mentality, especially for PS2. But also, we have to give Bradley Moss his roses because he has played exceptionally well. It feels like he's lived up to the expectations that everybody was kind of having for him, and he's been playing great. So it's going to be really interesting to see this week.
I think so too. And I had this conversation with Aqib Talib recently where it was like, Riley has to have the mentality. He was like, he has to know he's getting double-digit targets. And you have to go into the game knowing that. You have to go into the game, he said, with a short memory. Like, you're going to give up a play. That many targets, you're going to give up plays. Like, it's going to be ridiculous because they're going to avoid Pat. So, like, how quickly can you forget the bad plays? How much can you build off of the good ones, he said? But you got to know you're getting a heavy workload. And so, and if you can make a game-changing play out of that, he was using the reference to Bradley Roby when he used to get on that 2015 team so many targets, right? Like, people wouldn't throw at Chris Harris. People wouldn't throw at Aqib. So they would throw at Bradley Roby. Well, if Roby comes away with a pick and changes the game, even though he gives up a couple of completions, Talib's like, he did his job. So let's see if Riley Moss can do that.
Yeah, Brandon Jones, obviously, he looked great on Sunday. I was happy to finally see him emerge. So there's lots of good things. James, as always, an absolute pleasure. To everybody in the comments, thank you so much. I'm shocked how many people are invested in Zach Wilson, which is fabulous.
There's a lot. Yeah. Why is that, do you think? I mean, is it because everybody just wants to see them flip the pick? Yeah.
It's just a name, right? That people, you could trash for so long. Now he's looking a little bit better. See if you can get a little bit. I'm a big fan of Zach Wilson, actually. I think he really did impress me all throughout camp. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him.
Totally.
All right.
James we went down board games. We went into my phone a little bit about pictures from the Greenbrier. Yeah.
Also, I will not be seeing you for a couple of weeks, my friend. You will have plenty of good hosts for you. I am headed off to my wedding. I know.
What?
Next week at this time, I am headed to my wedding. So
where are you getting married?
I'm getting married up in the Vale Valley.
Oh, okay.
Which is so exciting and fun. So I'm pumped for that. And then I'm headed on my honeymoon immediately after. So
where are you going for your honeymoon?
Switzerland.
Are you allowed to tell or no?
Sure. I'm going to Switzerland for a few weeks. So
where? I went to Switzerland this summer.
Shut up. Okay, wait a second. We're going literally all over. We're going to we start in Zurich, then we're going to Montreux, which is like wine country, Zermatt, then we'll go into the Jungfrau region and then Lucerne and come back up.
We were in Brunnen for a family reunion, which is right on Lake Lucerne on the other side. Take the boat all over the lake. It's a little pricey, but take that. I love we're having this conversation for everybody. Anybody wants to go on Lake Lucerne, you can ride these boats that go. They're big. You can get on them in the morning, and you can stop at every little town off of Lake Lucerne.
No way.
Everywhere off of it, and you can get off and on as much as you like, really, throughout the day.
Okay.
That whole area is just. Lucerne's beautiful. Yeah, you're gonna have the time. There's nothing like it. There is nothing like it.
Well, I'm excited. We've got beautiful views here, but I know it's like next level over there.
I know. It's like my favorite thing about living here, right? The views are incredible.
I know.
Switzerland.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so pumped. I see everybody saying congratulations. So thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations. Have fun. Live it up.
Appreciate it.
It won't be the same, but we'll get through it.
Yes, I appreciate it. It'll be fun. Looking forward to watching the Broncos at like 11 o'clock at night when we're out there, but still pumped about it. So I'll be back for Thursday Night Football, which will be exciting. But yes, a few weeks without me. Appreciate you guys all so stinking much. James, as always, appreciate you. And we will see you in a few weeks, my friend.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Bye. Thank you.